I had some people ask me one time, Mike, you ever have a series that just punch you in the balls repeatedly, but in a good way? No, I didn't really actually have anyone ask me that, but if you did want to know that, have I got the series for you? Hey, what's up, bookworms and Red Gods faithful? Mike back today to talk a little something off the grid a little bit. And I say that because I looked around BookTube and I didn't see anybody else really reviewing this series. So I might be like one of the first to do it. I don't know. Things kind of just fly under the radar a lot. Because I know with the algorithm on YouTube, you can type in exactly the title of something and the channel name. It still doesn't come up. It's cruel and punishing God. But of course, guys, I am here today to talk about the God Blind Trilogy by Miss Anna Stephens. This is a series that has kind of been on my radar since, I guess it concluded in 2020, and that was when I kind of first heard about it. Actually, a friend of mine who's on Goodreads kept talking about the series and kept comparing it to First Law by Joe Abercrombie, which you know I am a huge fan of. And obviously, guys, that's going to get the hook going where I'm like, okay, well, you got my attention. So I would research a little bit more, and it was kind of saw like a mixed reaction from some people. So I started reading some reviews, and basically what they were saying, the people that didn't like it, was that it was too brutal and it was just too grimdarky. And I'm like, wow, feed me more, right? So I wanted to go ahead and pick this up, and I wanted to wait until I could have time on the schedule to read all three of them. And that's what I did. I read them all in December, and I'm glad that I read them all back to back to back because, guys, this is very much one story divided into 3 volumes. So I would recommend that you read all 3 of these together if you do it, because it is a great and I don't want to say fun experience, because there's some bad stuff going down in old Rilpor here, but we're going to talk about it a lot. Now, did this actually meet that sales job that I got about how it's kind of First Law-ish? Well, we are going to talk about it, guys. We're going to begin like usual by what is the series about. Now, the Miracles worship the bloodthirsty Red Gods. The Red Gods were exiled from Rilpor 1,000 years ago and were left to suffer a harsh life in the cold mountains. And a new Miracles king now plots an invasion of Rilpor's thriving cities and fertile earth. Don Tippleson is a Watcher, a civilian warrior guarding Rilpor's border. He's also the most powerful seer in generations, plagued with visions and prophecies. His people are devoted followers of the God of light and life, but Dom harbors deep secrets which threaten to be exposed when Rilloran, an escaped Mircea slave, stumbles broken and bleeding into his village. Meanwhile, more and more of Rilpor's most powerful figures are turning to the dark rituals and bloody sacrifices of the Red Gods, including those who plot to wrest the throne from the ailing king. But can Rilloran, with her inside knowledge of the Red Gods and her shocking ties to the Mircea's king, help Rilpor win the coming war? Or will Rilpor fall and the Red Gods make their long-awaited return? Well, there we go, guys. That takes us into, between 2018 through 2020, this is the God Blind Trilogy. Let's begin like usual, guys. We're going to talk about what makes the series good or bad. You know me. I like to start with the good, and there's a good chunk of it we're going to talk about here. First, I got to say the banter. Now, I see that this is where the First Law comparison come from, because if you know anything about Joe Abercrombie books, you know that the banter is just some of the best parts of those books. The dialogue between those characters is just so outrageous and so over the top, but somehow Joe finds a way to land it. And it's one of those things where you think anybody else tries to do it, it usually is just like, oh, that's really bad. That didn't really work. No, she's figured it out. She does have this down. She does have very good, witty, snappy dialogue like Joe Abercrombie, that just reading it off the page, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. In this world that she's created, these characters having the attitudes that they do, you could very much see them talking about the things that they talk about. And it never, ever feels... I don't like to use the word cringe, guys, because a lot of people are using that word cringe, and I don't think they know what it means. Basically, if you don't like it now, it's cringe. That's never something that I'm going to kind of roll with. But I'm saying if that's something that you worry about, it's not. It's very much like Joe in the way that like any other author does it. It might not work, but she has actually found the formula here. I can't tell you what that formula is, guys. That's why I'm just a guy with Wi-Fi, and these are published authors. But yeah, right there with Joe, and you know, that's my favorite modern fantasy author. That's quite the compliment coming from me. But I gotta say, the shocking twists in this are pretty second to none. They're really, really good. Every time I thought I knew where this series was going, even as far as the 3rd book, she'd pull some left hook out of nowhere that completely socked me, and it was really, really good. I mean, there's so many unexpected character deaths in here. Now, guys, I don't want thinking that this means it's like just straight nihilism, because it's not. It's definitely not. It's not straight nihilism. I mean, there are plenty of people who make it through this journey, but there are plenty of people who don't. I mean, you're going to be dealing with a major war here, so you're going to lose some people. So I think it keeps its realism in that way, in that no one's safe, really. No one is safe. And there's going to be some characters that you really, really like that don't make it. And that will be a lot of people will be like, oh, I couldn't stand it. I'm like, guys, I've read Grimdark for years. I'm used to characters that I love dying. That's what makes the genre work for me. But I'll get more into the Grimdark thing here in a little bit. But I think her establishing that no one is really safe here. Now, there are a couple things that turn some of these tropes on their head, and I can't spoil that for you because it's a really, really big part of this series. But I just say it was surprising to me, and I kind of like where she went with it. But yeah, like I said, more than once I thought, okay, well now this, and this is going to happen. And it didn't happen, but never in an insulting way. I always said that people talk about subverting expectations, but it takes a talented author just to subvert expectations, but not feel like they're insulting the reader. And I never feel like she feels like I don't think that she is insulting the reader at all with these books. So it's good. These are both really, really good things here. But guys, Siege Warfare, if that's something that you're into, this series is going to rock for you, because I've said recently, some of my Malazan reviews, that maybe military fantasy just isn't up to my liking. It seems like just a bunch of sitting around strategizing around campfires, which is cool. I know that these things happen in war. These aren't just the things that I personally don't like to read about. With this, they are quick, and then they get to the damn point. And look, guys, if you like Siege Warfare, Book 2, Dark Soul, my favorite one out of the 3, the entire book is a siege. And it is awesome. It is awesome. It's like the siege in Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson, where it's the whole book, though. I think so. But that's the closest comparison I can think of. That's one of the best, I think, Kapustan. It's one of the best sieges that I've ever read. She's right there, man. It's really good. And I think it does a good job of kind of, with war overall, just displaying that hopelessness, and that it's only a matter of time until we're just going to be drawing our swords and going out in a blaze of glory because we want to die on our feet. We don't want to die in these walls being starved out kind of thing. And it just feels like that countdown to it. And it's just done so well. And I can't say enough about that book right there. That's my book of the month for December, because I loved it. It just really did capture all those things, I think, of just feeling hopeless in that situation, and what do we do, and trying to find a way to strategize out of it. But it never once felt slow-paced or boring to me. And I love that. And for as much as I've complained about military fantasy, maybe it's just the way that certain military fantasy is written. I don't really know if you really classify this under military fantasy. I mean, there's a war in it, so I feel like you kind of got to. And most of the characters are in the military. So I don't know. I don't like to try to get into subgenres too much unless is it Grimdark or not. Again, I think with the multiple POVs in this one, a lot of people that did start to read along were like, this is just too many POVs. I think the first book does have 10 POVs, but here's the thing. 3 of them are really the big important ones. You got Chris, you got Dom, you got Rilpor. I feel like those are really the biggest. If there's 3 main characters, I think, in the series, it would probably be those 2. And their character growth over the trilogy is amazing. It really, really is. I think about where Chris starts and where Chris ends with this series, and it's like, wow, what an arc for a character like that. And then Dom is just like this ultimate tragic figure. I just talked about, I'm sorry guys, I keep talking about Malazan. It's just I've been doing Malazan for a year plus now, so where I said that Rulad was a very, very tragic figure. I feel like the same about Dom, very, very much a tragic figure, but not quite the same way, but it's just talking about all these tragic figures in fantasy lately. But I think that Mace is a character I never expected to love as much as I did. But yeah, over the course of this series, Mace is one that really just kind of grew into a role that I wasn't expecting. And it's done very well. It's earned. I never felt like it was forced at all. But I gotta say, Tara was probably my favorite storyline by the end of the 3rd book. Really good stuff, because before I felt like she was just there to be I'm the one tough chick among all of these dudes, and I'm going to show them that I'm the baddest. And I thought, okay, it's just going to be another one of those, which no problem with that. I just say again where I said I thought that it was predictable, but she goes into a storyline of book 3 that is really, really good. I mean, if you're into like espionage or something like that. I don't really know another way to put it, but it's great. It really is good stuff, and really, really great growth. All these characters really do have good growth where they go. And then, of course, Rilpor, who's just, she's a badass. What can I say besides that? She's really, really great. But there's some real bastards in this series too, guys. But the thing is the way the book is set up at the beginning, you don't know who these bastards are. So I feel like I would be ruining it for you if I told you about the characters that like I just, I hated to love and loved to hate. I felt like I would be ruining something for you. So I can't really go too much in depth about who the villains really are, because there are some shocks and some surprises along the way. But yeah, it's kind of a spoiler to name, so I'm not going to do that. But man, the brutality in this. The brutality in this is some of the most disgustingly wretched, awesome things I've ever seen in a fantasy book. And again, these are the kinds where I said I felt like reading that Joe Abercrombie might have clutched his pearls at this one scene that has to do with a tree. Let's put it that way. It is fucked up. It was really, really messed up. And I can see where there's some people being like, yeah, that's where I've got to go ahead and tap out me, Black Grimdark Heart. Yeah, I'm all for it. And that's where you kind of get into stride in that line of, is this series Grimdark or not? Which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's brutal, guys. If you aren't into violence, yes, this one, I don't know how you're going to feel about it, because she does not fade black when the violent scenes come up. She's very, very descriptive with it and very elaborate, to the point where sometimes I'm like, Miss Stevens, who hurt you? Much like I said about Pierce Brown when I talked about Dark Age. Like what happened to you to be able to put this into your mind, right? I also got to give some credit to the politics. I think the politics are very, very good, especially for a debut author. Usually, most debut authors in fantasy, they try to focus on their strengths, really, and not try to throw 3 or 4 different kind of plot elements in here. I think she balances it pretty well, and the politics, they are very, backroom, backstabbery, things like that, but I never in a way that I feel like, this is just lambs to the slaughter. There's some crazy, crazy stuff that happens in those, and a lot of them I didn't see coming. And I appreciate them almost in a Song of Ice and Fire kind of way, and that like, wow, that one kind of took me by surprise in a book where everyone's stabbing each other, So let's talk about some of the not so good things. Again, always, guys, is going to kind of be subjective to you. Kind of really is going to depend on you. For me, something that wasn't the best maybe is that the villains weren't really. There's a couple, like I said, that are really, like I said, just bastards. But so apparently, the one of the bigger ones didn't do a lot for me. I feel like maybe this character just didn't get enough time. This character does have some POV chapters and things like that, but I don't know. I just never really kind of just related to a point to where I was like, either I can see where this character is coming from, or God, I hate you. I want you to die. Now, there is another character like that, but I wouldn't call that character the big bad, So there's that. There's one scene, I think, with some character decisions. I said that the character growth in this is really, really good. And I feel like just about everything's earned except like one thing. And it's just because it's like blatantly up in your face about like this one character believes this. And then he has like a 2-minute conversation with someone. All of a sudden, oh, no, I don't believe that at all. And it just felt like, well, that was really, Leo Dan Brock from the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, probably the most easily manipulated character I've ever seen. And even he couldn't have been, had his mind changed that quick. So I know that some people did really surprise them. And that was something that I was kind of like, yeah, I think that should have been a slower burn, maybe over the course of all 3 books, and I might have liked that a little better, which also brings me to the romances. The romances didn't really get me very much. I kind of like what she did with Tara, sorta, in book 3, but the romances, I don't know. I feel like they probably could have done better. But guys, I'm very, very hard on romance when it comes to fantasy, so I don't think that you should really hold that one against her here. It's just none of them really clicked for me, where I was like, thinking back to like Faith on the Fallen, where I wanted certain characters. I'm not a shipping guy, but I really was, just batting the eyelashes every time those 2 characters were talking to each other. So I feel like that's kind of the standard I've set for modern fantasy of what I'd like to see in a romance, and did feel like this kind of got there. And yeah, this might be too brutal for some, not for me, but I'm not going to lie, guys. It will probably get to you. I've heard a lot of complaints while doing Malazan about the things that Mr. Erickson writes, and she's not that much different, guys. You're talking about medieval warfare here. There's a lot of bad things that happen to good people, up to and including sexual assault. It's going to happen in some of these books. And again, Miss Stevens does not hold your hand. She might hold your hand and lead you to it to get a closer seat. So those things are going to come up. So, you have been warned. Let's get into why you should read it, guys. Look, I don't think this is kind of like what I said about Faith on the Fallen, where I said that I feel like it's not a Song of Ice and Fire, but a Song of Ice and Fire fans. Same with this in First Law. It's not First Law, guys, but I think First Law fans will like it. It's that cruel and punishing world, morally gray characters most of the time. But I think First Law fans will enjoy it. The character work isn't as solid as Joe, but again, that's an impossibly high bar to set for a debut author. I got that a lot with Heinous. People are like, oh, he's not as good as Brandon Sanderson. Well, no shit, he's not as good as Brandon Sanderson. It's his first book, So same with this. I'm not going to hold Miss Stevens up to what Joe Abercrombie has done, obviously, but she will make you care about less than savory characters, and I think that is a very, very high skill for a debut author to pull off there. And I think that the ending's going to make you feel some things, And to me, that says that she wrote a good story with characters I care about, because you just kind of shrug and be indifferent if you were losing characters and you just didn't give a damn about them. So obviously, you do end up giving a damn about a lot of these characters. I think it's a quick read, too. I mean, I think all three of these books combined are like 1,200 pages, maybe, if that. Look, all three of these are shorter than a regular Malazan book, so I think they're obviously much easier to read. So I went through these in a couple of weeks. I think you guys probably could too. I know the people that did the audio went through all three of them in a week. So if that's like your thing, you could probably get through that pretty easy. Although I've heard that it's hard to get some of the audios depending on where you live. I don't know. I'm not the Audible guy, guys. So maybe someone will drop in the comments and tell that story. That's just what I heard on my Discord, because a lot of people do the audio. And I heard that there's different audiobook narrators, apparently. Some of them say names differently. Like someone calls Chris, they call him Christ. Stuff like that. So I don't know. You have to kind of, drop in the comments and see what anybody's saying about others. But with this thing is, I feel like it's very accessible. It's not overly complex. You've got your dozen characters up front. And you're like, okay, there's a lot of characters. Stick with it. It'll make sense over time. If it's a character that's important, she's going to keep reminding you who it is. You're never going to feel lost about it. It's not going to be like you're in book 2 and you're like, who the hell is this character? You're never going to really do that. You're going to know who these characters are if you just stick with it. Might seem a tad overwhelming at first, but I think that you'll get a grip on it, and once you realize who's on Rilpor, and who's with the Mirror Seas, I think that you'll start to get it a little more settled. And of course, you just got your two main lands here, and I think that helps a lot. So she's not bogging you down with huge world building events. So I think, again, like I said, it's pretty accessible, just depending on what your violence threshold is. If your violence threshold is high, if you like violent books, I think you're going to be okay, and you will have a good time with it. Now, I do got some final thoughts before I go here, guys. I think that this is a ambitious, if not wholly competent, first series for a debut author. I think that the way that she was able to have a beginning, middle, and end very clearly planned out before she started writing, I think that helped a lot, because I never felt anything felt like it was being made up as she went. Nothing ever felt listless. You knew where you were going the whole time. There was a sense of urgency to the whole thing. There was never too much just sitting around like, what are we doing? Everything mattered, and I think that really, it's just straight meat, guys. I don't think there's any fluff in these books at all, because most authors that wrote this series would have said, okay, about halfway through book 2, I think I'm going to go ahead and extend this to a 4 or 5 book series, and then they would have really fluffed it up. I love it when authors keep their trilogies, because it's like this, guys. It's straight meat. There's nothing that you feel like could have been cut out, and it wouldn't have mattered. But here's my thing with the Grimdark thing. I don't think I'd really call it quite Grimdark, because it's like it has Grimdark content, but the thing with Grimdark really is where you don't really have anyone trying to do good because it's the right thing to do. This series does have guys and gals that are good, and they're only doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's humane. So I can't really say that it's straight Grimdark. I think what I would kind of say is, say you've got John Gwynne, Faithful and the Fallen right here, and you got Joe Abercrombie's First Law right here. It's somewhere right about here. It's somewhere in the middle of those two, in that, it's got the violence and things like that, but it doesn't have, it doesn't have, there's a character shitting themselves and stuff like Joe Abercrombie books. But it's, basically, I say, guys, the best comparison that I could find is Faithful and the Fallen, but with bad language and R-rated violence in it. John does have heads flipping off a lot, but they're usually demons. So I think it's like Lord of the Rings. You can kind of get away with chopping off orcs' heads more so than you can, chopping off human heads. So that should be a rating system. What kind of heads can you chop off? But I think fans of both those series, First Law and Faithful and the Fallen, will enjoy this. I'll find plenty to like. And look, it has me really interested to see how Miss Stevens follows up this series. I know she does have a new series that she's writing right now. I think it's called Songs of the Drowned. I know book 1, The Stone Knife, I have that one. That one's already out. And I think book 2, I think it's called The Jaguar Path. I'm not really sure. Path. I think that she's got a release date for that sometime in 2022. So this is definitely an author I'm going to keep an eye out for, because I really like what she did here. I don't know if I will intend to intentionally wait until that series is complete, more so than just my schedule is pretty booked right now on some stuff I want to do. But I'm glad that I got these in, because I've really been just had so much interest in them, not just because the covers are awesome, but guys, the covers are awesome. And sometimes, like I said, never judge a book by its cover unless it's awesome, and these are awesome. And I think that these are pretty awesome books. They're not going to be for everyone. Like I said, I think it was a pretty mixed reaction with the people that were reading along with me in December, but I very much like them. You don't go into it expecting the First Law. I think that you'll be fine. But again, if you like the First Law, I think you'll find plenty to like here, and I'm excited to see what she does next. So guys, have you read the God Blind Trilogy? What did you think? Drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.